Only a yellow bulb was swinging in the dark room. In its light, the shadows on the walls trembled, as if the walls themselves were afraid. The woman, whose face had once been fresh and fragrant, now sat silently with blue circles around her eyes, a dry mouth and a swollen forehead. Her breathing was irregular. She was slowly rubbing her swollen belly, as if comforting the little soul that was growing inside her. The door opened with a bang. He entered, belt in hand, hatred on his face and cruelty in his eyes. "Why are you silent? Answer," he roared. The woman closed her eyes. As always, this time too, she began to seek refuge within herself to save herself. But where was the refuge? The four walls of this house had become her grave, and her husband was the guardian of the grave. "There was too much salt in my food. What was it on purpose? Do you want me to die?" There was no doubt in his question, no accusation. "No." She barely spoke. "My nature. I." Another whip fell on her shoulder. This time she screamed, but not just with her mouth, her stomach churned. She fell to the ground and began to groan, holding her stomach with both hands. "I think something is happening." Her voice trembled. But the man shouted, "You're acting. That's what all women do." Then he went out. He left the door open. And she lay on the ground, eyes closed, drenched in sweat, just praying that the life inside wouldn't end. Hours passed. Laughter, the sounds of mobile phones, the indifference of the world echoed outside the door. But inside, a war was going on, between the breath of a woman and the life of a child. Then suddenly a tragic moment came. Her whole body shook with shock. Her eyes widened. And then a fainting fit set in. When she opened her eyes, she was in a strange bed. White sheets, white walls, and a nurse who looked into her eyes and said, "You are lucky. The baby was born prematurely but alive." She turned to stone. Is the baby really alive? Did she really survive? Did that tyrant really not take her breath away? Just then the door opened. And inside he entered, the same man who had brought her to the brink of death. Artificial regret on his face, flowers in his hands, and false love on his tongue. She just looked at him. Now something inside her had died. A woman who is broken, she does not speak. She only remembers. And one day, that memory becomes revenge. He placed the bouquet of flowers on the table. "I made a mistake, forgive me." He spoke slowly, as if his tone contained molten poison, which he was offering wrapped in honey. The woman remained silent. Neither expression of hatred, nor desire for forgiveness. Her eyes were fixed on the window, from where a corner of the sky was visible. The corner on which the sunlight was falling. "I wish this light could reach inside. But some lights are swallowed by darkness. The doctor was saying that the child is still in danger, but..." He paused as if thinking something. "You have become a mother. Now forget everything." Mother. The word landed like an arrow in her heart. How had she become a mother? Can love ever be born from a womb of push, hit, hatred and loneliness? She closed her eyes. But that scene, that scream, that moment when her body shook, it still echoed inside her. The nurse came, smiled and said, "Congratulations, you have a son. He is very weak but he is fighting. Like you fought." She smiled slowly. For the first time in a long time. Because she felt as if someone understood her pain. The nurse took her hand, and looking into her eyes said, "When I brought you here, you were close to death. You decided to live on your own. You didn't give up." A tear flowed from her eyes. The same tear, which had been gathering inside for many days. Someone had said, "A woman is weak. But perhaps the pain she endures, she becomes a mountain." "Would you like to see the child?" the nurse asked. She began to nod her head slowly. Then the moment came. A tiny being whose breathing was slow. Seeing his existence, she started sobbing and crying. Such a cry, which could only be of a mother. She felt as if all her pain had ended in that one moment. But she knew it was not over. It was just the beginning. That tiny child, his eyes closed, his hands shaking slightly. And his face. Would fate also have wounds like his mother's? Or would the time which was taken away from his mother be given back to his son? Suddenly the door opened. He came in. The same hypocrisy on his face, the same layer of sweet poison on his tongue. Should the child be given a name? He said, as if he had never been cruel. The woman held the child close to her, and said softly, "A name? No, not yet. Time will tell whose child this is. Me or you." He was shocked, because it was the first time he had opened his lips. And these lips were not just speaking, they were the first stroke of revenge. The silence of the night had spread to every corner of the room. White walls, white bed, and a silent mother who was thinking for a long time with her child in her arms. She did not sleep, did not cry, did not speak. Just a silent war was going on inside her. Sometimes she would look at the child's face. Sometimes she would look at her injured arm. Is this the hand with which I will raise this child? She would ask herself and break down inside. A faint light would come through the crack in the door. Sometimes the sound of a nurse's footsteps could be heard from outside. Sometimes a sob. And then silence. Suddenly the door opened slightly. He came. The softness, which had never been in his tone, was now forcing its way in. "How are you?" he asked softly. But he knew what she was like. The woman did not answer. "You know, I said too much in my anger. You know too, I'm not like that." Her tongue was trying to sugarcoat the poison. She spoke softly. "You are just like that. You're just like you seem. You are the one who can kick a woman in the stomach." For a moment he fell silent, perhaps startled, or perhaps frightened by the harshness of her tone. "Do you want me to leave here?" she asked. She gently patted the baby. Then she said softly, "Why did you come here? For love? No. For regret? Not at all. You came here because you are afraid that if I survive, then your world might change tomorrow." He was startled. "What kind of talk are you talking about?" "True. I was your silent prisoner. Now I have become a mother. And after becoming a mother, a woman does not only give love. She also protects from herself, from her child, from her being." For the first time he stood there. He didn't say anything, didn't turn around, just stepped towards the door and walked out. There were tears in the woman's eyes, but she wasn't crying. Those tears weren't of fear. They were of decision. She knew the road was long. She had to return to a home that was a prison. She had to live with a man who had broken her. But this time she wouldn't stay silent. She was a mother. And when a mother's patience is exhausted, she can change everything. A light flashed in the sky outside, as if nature had heard the storm in her heart. The cold fog was slowly beginning to cling to the bricks of the street. The car door opened and she got out, the newborn in her arms, a blanket on her body, but the darkness in her eyes, which reminded her of this roof where she had been beaten every day. The same door and walls, the same courtyard, the same rusty gate, everything was the same. Only one thing had changed. She was no longer alone. In her lap was that innocent child, who was about to become her greatest weakness, and her greatest weapon. When she entered, she felt as if even breathing was a punishment again. The old calendar hanging on the wall, the same broken chandelier, and that chair, where her husband used to sit and taunt her. He came, coming out from around the corner of the door, smiling as if nothing had happened. "I have had a new bed put in your room, and I have also bought a small crib for the baby." The woman kept looking at him silently. A sentence echoed in her heart. "By doing all this, you cannot erase that day, that night, that beating," she said softly. "The bed may be new, but the wounds are old." He laughed, as if trying to avoid the conversation. "Come on, leave these things behind. Now you are a mother. Learn to be happy." He turned around. She hugged the baby to her chest and walked towards the room. The room was the same, but the air had changed. Now there were the breaths of mother and son, and something new was being written on the walls. Patience, tolerance, and silent revenge. the baby would start moaning again and again. His breathing was sometimes rapid, sometimes shallow. She would wake up at night, sometimes praying, sometimes just remaining silent. Now her husband would bring flowers, sometimes medicine, sometimes good manners. But she knew, this is all temporary. He is the same man who remains silent for a few days, then one day gets angry and tramples everything. One night, when the child was sleeping, she stood on the roof. The moonlight was scattered, but darkness was shrouding her heart. She looked up at the sky. "Oh Lord, you saved me, you gave me my child too. Has the time come now, that I should not only endure the injustice, but also respond?" The same person was calling from inside. "Where are you? Warm the milk, and make the child quiet." She turned, took a deep breath, and made a vow in her heart. "You broke my body, but my soul, it is awake now." Day had broken. She was sitting on a chair in the corner of the room, slowly lulling the baby into a lullaby. The baby was sleeping, but her eyes were wide open. "Sleep, my moon. You don't know the truth yet. You haven't felt the wounds of the world that scratched your mother yet. Sleep. Right now, your sleep only smells of milk. But there's so much burning in my eyes." She caressed the baby's forehead and laid him on the bed. Her husband's voice came from the kitchen. "Where's the tea? You've been holding the baby all day, and you also have to run the house." She was burned to the core but remained silent. Even though her fingers burned while making tea, she didn't say anything. Now she had turned every pain into a memory, like a file which she was saving inside. One day it would come in handy, she knew. In the evening, the baby cried for a long time. Even the doctor's medicine didn't work. She picked him up in her arms and brought him out onto the roof. The cold wind, the dark night, and a mother praying under the blue sky. "Oh God, please give my baby health. But if you have to give me courage, then give me that too. That I can't be the same as before." Suddenly, she remembered everything. That night when she was kicked in the stomach. The moment she suffered the pain of giving birth lying on the ground. The time she arrived at the hospital half dead. That silent day when she survived despite everything. "I wasn't broken. I was broken. And now I'm picking up my broken bones." The next day, she stood in front of the mirror. Her face was yellow, her hair was disheveled, her eyes were tired. But one thing was new. Question in her eyes. Will I always live in this house with this person in this silence? Will my child see all this one day? No. I have to do something. She had made up her mind. The days when she had been silent were over. Now every breath, every silence, every step was leading towards a change. No anger, no noise, only truth, time, and belief. The next night she wrote something for the first time. Not on paper. On her heart. "If I have to change, the time is now. Otherwise this tyrant will swallow my son tomorrow too." In the morning mist, when a faint light entered the room through the crack in the door, she had woken up quietly. Today her eyes were open not from sleep, but from a new feeling. The child was still sleeping. She slowly lifted him into her arms, held him to her chest, and said softly, "My son, your mother is no longer just a broken woman. She is going to put herself together." She remembered sometimes she used to write poetry. Sometimes in her dreams she intended to change the world. But all that was lost somewhere, in the endless chains of marriage, bonds, oppression, and patience. But today, something was stirring inside. Question, a light, a whisper. She went to the kitchen, made breakfast, cleaned the room, bathed the child, polished it, recited prayers, and blew on it. Then she stood in front of the mirror. Today she adjusted her shawl, tidied her hair, and put a little sticky Vaseline on her lips, as if after years she had considered herself. Just then her husband came into the room, holding a cup of tea in her hand and saying, "Are you ready for a big day? Aren't you going somewhere?" She remained silent but said in her heart, "Yes, I have to go to myself. I need permission for a job." He said, "Online work. on children's stories, sitting at home, just a little time every day. Her husband was startled, as if he had heard a word in a new language. You work. What do you need? The need is not only for bread. She spoke slowly. Sometimes it is also for oneself. He waved his hand. Don't get caught up in these unnecessary things. What you have is enough. But today she didn't bow. She remained silent, but a fire started burning inside. At night, after the baby went to sleep, she opened her mobile and started reading something. Self-worth. Broken women who healed. Motherhood and strength. Each word kept showing her a mirror of herself. Then she wrote something for herself for the first time. Not inside the wall on her heart but on paper. I am the woman who was broken, but handled every crumb. Now I am making a weapon out of these crumbs, so that I can save myself. When her husband woke up in the morning, he did not see the paper. But for the first time, a light, different from a softness, was shining in the woman's eyes. Now she was not just a mother. She was an awakened woman. And an awakened woman never went back to sleep easily. It was raining outside. Drops fell from the sky, as if washing away the sobs of the earth. But another sob inside the house echoed in the heart of a woman. But now it was not a sob, it was the beginning of courage. She gave herself time for the first time. When the baby fell asleep, and her husband went to the office, she sat down, paper and pen in her lap. A cup of tea on the table in front of her, an old mobile phone, and her, who was trying to make herself heard. Can I write? Will anyone want to listen to what I write? Is there any light in my wounds? Or is it just pain? Amidst these questions, she did what she had not done for years. But, first sentence. I am a mother. And a mother does not only give milk and lullabies. She gives eyes that can recognize the darkness that is coming. She wrote a few paragraphs, sent them, and registered on a small online blog. This was her first step. When her husband came in the evening, he asked as soon as he sat down at the dinner table, "You seem a little different today. What happened?" "Today I talked to myself," she said softly. "What do you mean?" Her husband stared, putting down his spoon. "That's it." The one who had been silent for years spoke today. Her husband started laughing. "You women too, if you get 2 days of rest, you become a philosopher." She didn't smile. She didn't answer, she didn't bow. There was just a strange silent power in her eyes, as if she wasn't used to hearing this anymore. She went inside, fed the baby and sat down on the bed. Opened the mobile, and saw the first blog post. 37 people read, 5 commented. And one woman wrote, "You wrote my story. I am the same, I was just silent until now." A real smile came to her lips for the first time. This was not just a piece of writing. This was a rebellion. Quiet, slow, but firm rebellion. Now she knew. Words can be weapons. And when a mother fights with words, then time also loses. Then at night, lying with the child, she promised herself, "Now I will not bow down, neither in my own eyes, nor in the eyes of the world. I have learned to live. Now it remains to change." The afternoon sun was filtering in through the window of the room. The child slept lightly, woke up, smiled against his mother's chest. And the woman, who until yesterday had considered herself broken, was today pouring out a garland of words. Slowly, without making any noise. She was reassembling herself. Just then the door opened. The husband entered, a little more quietly. "You have changed a lot these days," he said. The woman looked up but said nothing. It was true, she had changed. Now she talked to herself, questioned herself, and answered herself. "Do you think you will become self-sufficient now?" Her tone was full of venom but wrapped in laughter. "I think that I am no longer living at the mercy of anyone," she said softly. "What do you mean?" This time there was danger in her tone. "It means that if I have one, it is not because you left me, but because I held on to myself." Her husband's face began to redden. Do you think by writing 2 words you have become so big? She smiled, but this time there were no wounds in that smile, but rather certainty. I don't need to become anything. I am the one who has died many times and come back to life. The one you hit, dropped, broke. But still she became a mother. And lived for her child. And now she is not just your wife. She is a complete woman. He stepped forward, trying to hold her hand. Have you learned to be rude? She shook her hand off. This was the first time he did not pull his hand back, but rather shook it off. Now these hands are only for holding the child, not for beating. Do you understand? He pulled back. His eyes lowered. At one point the man himself felt afraid. Because the woman standing in front of him was not a scared wife, but a waking mother. At night, when the child fell asleep, the woman took out her old diary from the closet, which was covered in dust. She opened a page and wrote, "Today I learned to say no." And when a woman learns to say no, she comes out of slavery. Now he can't bring me down, because I've now stood up from the inside. The faint sound of the fan echoed in the silence of the room. The hands of the clock hanging on the wall seemed not to be keeping track of time, but rather counting the wounds. She was sitting near the door, holding her child in her arms. The sun had come out in the small courtyard, and there was the noise of life outside the door. But inside, a silent revolution was taking place. You have become accustomed to peeking out of the door these days. The husband sneered. The woman turned. If it is better to die outside than to live inside, then a person learns to peek. Her tone was soft, but not devoid of venom. In fact, it was full of truth. I don't like your tendency to look outward. The same old control began to be reflected in her husband's voice. You only like what you can control, she said softly. But I am no longer the one who can be controlled. He came closer, said angrily, what do you think you can win alone? This world will trample you. At least the world will not do what you did. His answer was straightforward. He slammed the door shut and left. The room was silent. The child, who was sleeping in his mother's lap, suddenly started to move a little. The mother held him to her chest, and as if said to herself, I have to fight for you. I don't want to give you a childhood full of wounds. At that moment, a thought came to her heart. Can I find a job outside? Can I do some work with my child? She took out her old bag from the closet, which still contained her premarital certificates and papers, the dreams of some time, which had been buried in dust. Now she began to dust them off. She thought of her childhood school, an old friend, and a quiet woman from the neighborhood, who once taught children at home. Perhaps there was a way out there. At night, when her husband was sleeping, she stroked the child's sleeping face and said, I will not live in silence anymore. I promise myself, either I will change this house, or the path of life. The morning mist had now turned into sunshine. The street was filled with the sounds of children, birds chirping, and shopkeepers. But for her this day was different. Today, after many years, she chose her own clothes, simple but clean, dressed the baby, wrapped him in a small blanket, and touched the doorknob for the first time. Not by anyone's order, nor out of fear of anyone, but of her own free will. As soon as she opened the door, a cool breeze touched her face, as if time had said, Finally, you have arrived. She looked around. 2 women from the neighborhood were staring at her silently. One smiled from the corner of her eye. The other whispered, Now she is starting to come out. Her husband may not be able to control himself. Heard, but did not absorb. Now the place inside her where this poison used to descend had ended. Her steps began to move towards the school, where she had once studied. Today there was hope that a door would open. As the old school drew near, her heart began to tremble. The bells of the past began to ring. This is the same door, through which I left with a dream. And today I have returned in search of those same dreams. She went to the principal's office and requested, "My name is Sana. I used to be a student of this school. Today I am a mother. And I only want a small job. Not for the house, but for respect." The principal searched her eyes for something. "Can you teach? I am ready to learn every day." Sana said without bowing her head. "We need help in the library to instill the habit of reading in the children. It is a small job, the salary is low, but the door is open." Sana's eyes got moist. But no tears fell. Because these tears were not of weakness, of victory. When she left the school, the child was sleeping on her chest. "You have seen my sleep. Now look at my waking eyes, my child. For you, I am now rewriting myself." Returning home. When I opened the door, my husband was sitting in the yard. "Where did you go?" she asked. Sana looked me straight in the eyes and said, "Right there where you never let me go. But today, I'm back. On my own terms." The house was silent, but there was a silence that comes before a storm. Sana was looking at the kitchen with her child in her arms, with tired eyes. Today she had completed her first day of work at school, taking care of the little ones in the library, arranging the books, and at the same time her child's crying, asking for milk, everything. It was a new world, a new exhaustion. But in this exhaustion there was also a sense of awakening. Just then her husband came up from behind and said, "Dark circles are starting to form under your eyes. All this desire to become a woman will cost you a lot." Sana replied without blinking, "Yes, it is expensive. But cheaper than slavery." The husband laughed angrily. "You are a mother, a wife, a woman of the house. These books, this outside air. You will not like it. If that is the case, then why do you go out?" Sana threw back the arrow of sarcasm for the first time. "A man is from outside," he said loudly. "And a woman, is she only there to absorb pain? Is she only created to bear the burden of 9 months, to be beaten, and to remain silent?" Sana's voice was no longer soft, but had become the truth from the heart. The husband fell silent. For the first time he could not answer. At night, when Sana put the child to bed, her back ached, her eyes were red. But there was a strange peace in her heart, as if every fatigue, every pain had a meaning. She sat down, took out her diary and wrote, "Today I am tired. From the body, from sleep, from time. But I will not lose. Because my child does not need a tired mother. A winning mother." The next day at school she received her first paycheck. A small amount but a big recognition. She took the paycheck, bought a small clothes cradle, and a warm sweater for the baby. When she put the sweater on at night, the baby smiled and waved. She knew. This wasn't just a baby. This was the recognition of her victory. A silent cold war was going on in the house. The husband could not bear the wounds, which were inflicted neither by the tongue, nor by the hand, but by the changing eyes of a woman, which were sparkling with self-confidence every day. One day he suddenly said to Sana, "Have you heard that you are going to school? People are laughing at you. What was the need to become a spectacle in front of everyone?" Sana wiped the child's nose with the finger of her hand, then looked at her husband and said, "People are laughing. Or are you not digesting that your wife has now become a human being before becoming a wife?" He said in a tone full of venom, "This is all rebellion. The real jewel of a woman is silence. You have taken it off." Sana was no longer silent. For the first time, she said in a slow but steady tone, "Jewelry. The jewelry that was choking me. In which my dreams were buried. No, I don't wear that jewelry anymore. Now I am just a mother. And a mother is not just there to endure, but also to save. When I was screaming, you were silent. When I was crying, you were laughing. Now that I am standing up, you are trembling." The husband was shocked. For the first time, the woman he had considered only worthy of obedience was now questioning him. "Tell me, when I was lying on the floor with the baby, sobbing, where were you?" When my bones were aching. And your kicks were on my stomach. Then did you like my silence? The husband said nothing. This time he couldn't even meet her eyes. Sana stepped forward, picked up her purse, took the child in her arms, and slowly started walking out. Stopped at the door, turned around and said, "Now I am not just your wife. I am the mother of my son. And when a mother wakes up, she changes the world." That day she was not going to school. She was going to win life. That day brought new hope for Sana. The school principal called her into her room, smiled and said, "We need a supervisor to work with the children. Someone who understands the wounds themselves and knows how to handle children with words. You are the one." Sana's eyes lit up. This wasn't just a job. This was recognition, respect, and a reward for her self-interest. That day, for the first time, Sana bought herself something sweet. 2 small biscuits, one for herself, one for her son. When she returned home, her mother-in-law was standing at the door. Hatred on her face, mockery in her eyes. "Sister-in-law, are you now working?" These were the only days left. "Is Mion dead when his wife comes out?" Sana politely replied, "If he had died, it would have been a pity. But for someone who is still alive, silence is enough." The mother-in-law provoked her husband at home. The women of the neighborhood started gossiping. Relatives started calling. "Does your wife work?" Now her voice has changed. "What happened to your honor in all this?" The husband was burning inside. But his style had changed. Now instead of hitting, he was pressuring the environment. One night, Sana came home with a high fever. The husband was sitting quietly. "You keep earning respect in schools. And the child keeps getting sick. Are you the mother?" The sentence hit like an arrow. But Sana controlled herself. She placed a wet cloth on the child's forehead and silently gave him medicine. Then she sat down in front of her husband and said, "If you were a father, you would have taken me to the hospital with you. Don't be sarcastic. But you are just a man, not a father." "No. I am a mother who knows how to bear the pain of a child and how to take care of myself." He got up and left the room. Survived but lost. That night, Sana looked at the child's sleeping face, stroking her hair, and said softly, "I am fighting for you. And now, no one's fear can stop me." It was morning. Sana reached school, her face simple, her heart full of courage. But the watchman standing at the gate averted his gaze. Then a call came from the office. "Don't go to the library for a while, there's a problem." Sana's heart fluttered slightly. Then the principal called her. As soon as she entered the room, the atmosphere changed. "Sana," a man came, calling himself your husband. "He said that your mental state is not good. You leave the child alone. And your behavior at school is unbalanced." Sana's breathing stopped for a moment, as if someone had attacked her years of patience. But she closed her eyes, and after a deep breath she said, "Did that man give any evidence? Any writing, any medical report?" "No, just verbal." The principal spoke. "So can my character, my hard work, my honor be shaken by someone's verbal accusation?" The principal bowed his head. "We know your truth. But this matter has now gone from personal to public." Sana took out her identity card from her purse. "I am a woman working in a school, of my own free will with my child. Now if someone calls me mentally ill, I have the right to approach the court." She stood up. "I am not just a wife. Now I am also a citizen. And if someone tarnishes my reputation, then the law will be my answer." That same evening, Sana spoke to a legal advisor. She collected all her husband's past beatings, witnesses, school attendance, child's treatment receipts. All of them. For the first time, she filed an initial complaint against her husband for harassment, character assassination, and domestic violence. When the husband received the notice, he was furious. "What is all this? Are you going to take me to court?" he shouted. Sana looked him in the eye and said, "Now I will not just take the beating. Now I will answer you. Silence was not my weakness. It was your fate, which is over now." That night was quiet, but Sana had lost sleep. The baby was sleeping next to her, and her eyes were staring at the ceiling, as if trying to read some fear. The next morning a stranger came to the door. He held out an envelope. Inside the envelope was a court notice. Full custody of the child should be given to the father, because the mother works and is mentally stressed. The word shot through Sana's heart like an arrow, as if someone had snatched her breath away. But she didn't let herself fall. She immediately contacted her lawyer. All the papers, medical reports, school notes, and the photos that had been taken after her husband beat her. She gathered everything. The court date was set. The husband sat stiffly in court, as if waiting for a victory. When the judge asked Sana, "You claim that this man was abusing you. Why didn't you complain first?" Sana replied calmly, "Because I was crying, and I felt maybe my silence would change it. But when the child lying in my lap for the first time was scared of my wounds, then I decided that if I remained silent, then this child too would become a husband who beats him tomorrow, or a wife who endures in silence. I am no longer just my mother, but the protector of his future." The judge's eyes narrowed. The courtroom fell silent. The husband said, "She brings the child to school, turns the sick child around in the sun. She is not fit to be a mother." Sana smiled, with bitter, strong, and ruthless truth. "How many times did you starve him to sleep? How many times did you close the door on his screams? How many times did blood come out of my chest from the severity of your slap? And still I breastfed him. Am I not capable of being a mother? Or were you never capable of being a father?" The eyes of the women present in the courtroom became wet. Some men looked away. The judge, while concluding the hearing, said, "When I give a decision, I will not only give it according to the law, but also according to my conscience." That day passed, and night came. Sana hugged the child to her chest and said, "I will not let you grow up in fear of anyone. You were born free, and you will live free, because your mother is no longer a prisoner." Sana was wearing a light green cloak, like the color of a new hope. The child in her lap, and a strange silence in her heart. Neither fear nor pride, just a silence that was saying a lot. The judge closed the file and said, "In light of the evidence, witnesses, and statements, this court rules that the child will remain with the mother. The father was found neither trustworthy nor responsible. The mother took full care of the child despite suffering. The court recognizes the mother's sacrifice." Tears began to flow from Sana's eyes. But those tears were not of fear, but of gratitude. Venom came into her husband's eyes. He left the court, but did not admit defeat. 2 days later, when Sana reached school, a few women from the neighborhood were standing at the gate. "Isn't this the woman who now drags the court into court as a mother?" Some spat, some taunted. Sana controlled herself for a moment. Then she spoke softly. "Your words are not salt on my wound. They are an acknowledgement of my sacrifice. 'Cause you are the one who listens to the truth and turns a deaf ear. And I am the one who earns respect by speaking the truth." That evening, an explosion occurred in the schoolroom. Thankfully, there were no children. But the police came, a report was filed. And Sana suspected this was all her husband's trick. A police officer came and said, "Bibi, they are trying to harm you. Have you offended anyone?" Sana said quietly, "I have only dared to speak the truth. That is all the resentment." She stayed awake the whole night. The child was sleeping, but the mother kept sitting with a new fire in her eyes. The next day, a newspaper vendor came in front of the school and said, "Baji, look, your picture is up. The title is, 'Rebellious Woman or Oppressed Mother.'" Sana took the newspaper. read it, smiled, and looked up at the sky. Finally, I am starting to be seen, even in the mirror of hatred. But I am no longer invisible. Sanaa's name started circulating in newspapers, news and social media. Some called her a rebellious woman. Some called her a mother's sacrifice. But all eyes were now on her, whom no one had even seen until yesterday. That day, a large crowd had gathered at the school gate. Someone had spread a rumor that this woman seduces school children, sells her sorrow. This rumor was not spread by any ordinary person, but by the same husband who had bought a few people from the neighborhood. Sanaa reached the gate. The crowd started shouting as soon as they saw her. This woman is a disgrace. She is a danger to our daughters. For a moment, she was frightened, and she went forward and stood on the stone of the gate and said, "Quiet. Just once, quiet." The noise gradually subsided. I am the woman who carried a life inside my body for 9 months, and you people killed my character in just 9 days. I am the mother who gave birth to a child even after stumbling on her stomach, and you are the society that is afraid of a woman's life. I am not taking anything away from you. I am only taking back what you took from me without permission. My identity, my voice, and my life. The crowd fell silent. Some bowed their heads. Some wiped their eyes. That same night, Sanaa's school was stoned again. Glasses were broken. Defamation chalked on the walls. Sanaa went to the police station. This time she didn't cry. Instead she said, "This attack is not just on my existence. It is on education, justice, and truth. I have come to file an FA against my husband, and the idea that if a woman wins, then she must be destroyed." The police officer said, "You are alone. You will have to endure a lot in the future." Sanaa replied directly, "Alone? I have my child with me. And now, my silence is not over. The whole society is starting to resonate." The walls of the courtroom were shrouded in silence that day. Sanaa entered the courtroom with her child, dressed in simple clothes, with tired eyes but a calm face. Outside were the media cameras, the voices of reporters. This is the woman who accused her husband of violence, character assassination, and conspiracy. Is this woman now a mother or a villain? Sanaa kept her eyes down, because she knew now the time to speak was inside, not in front of the camera. The lawyer stood up in the courtroom. "Your Honor, this woman, Sanaa, is making accusations against her husband that cannot be proven. She has feelings. But the law demands proof." Looking at Sanaa, he said sarcastically, "Can your tears be evidence for the court?" A light laugh was heard in the courtroom. Sanaa took her child in her arms, gently patted him to sleep, and stood up slowly. "Your Honor, my name is Sanaa. This is the name my mother gave me. And my husband wanted me to be known only by her name." She quietly placed the file on the table. "This is the hospital report, when I broke my rib during pregnancy. This is the photo, when I fell to the ground and my baby was born prematurely. This is the attendance record of the school where I work, and this letter from the doctors. That I am not mentally ill, just a mother who bears witness to the injuries." The court was silent. I am not fond of making accusations, but I am afraid to remain silent now. Because if my daughter had to endure this tomorrow, I would not have raised my voice for her either. Is it just because society would say, "Shut up, this is a family matter"? The lawyer said, "So you have come to prove yourself right now?" Sanaa said, "No. I have only come to tell that if a woman starts speaking, you should have the courage to listen." The judge looked at the lawyer. "Does the accused, that is, the husband, want to say anything?" The husband stood up, drenched in sweat, embarrassment in his eyes, and said, "I thought she would never be able to speak. I thought I would always keep her under me. But today, I am afraid of her. 'Cause she is no longer just my wife. She is now my punishment." For the first time, silence resounded in the courtroom. the silence that follows a truth. The judge reserved the verdict and ordered everyone to leave. As they were leaving, a reporter passed the microphone. "Sanaa Bibi, what do you want now?" Sanaa said only one sentence. "I want my story to be my last, and not another woman's first." It was 12:30 at night. Sanaa was packing the baby's clothes. The final verdict was to be delivered in court tomorrow, and her heart was restless, hopeful and calm. Then the phone beeped. A video message came from an unknown number. Sanaa opened it fearfully. The video showed her child, standing outside the school. Someone was talking to her. And the voice was coming. "If the mother goes to court, then the child will never return to her mother." The mobile fell from Sanaa's hands. Her breath stopped. Her heart started to scream. Her whole body trembled. The next moment she ran to her son's room. The child was sound asleep, safe and sound. Sanaa hugged him to her chest. Then tears didn't just fill her eyes. They filled them with fire. At that moment she went straight to the police station. "I have to write a report. This is not just a threat. My child's life is in danger." The police officer watched the entire video. He opened Sanaa's file and said, "Now we will not just file a complaint. Now we will take action." The next morning, the court was to pronounce the verdict. The judge said, "The court has pronounced the verdict in light of all the evidence, the arguments of the lawyers, and Sanaa Bibi's personal testimony. 1. The mother is given full custody of the child. 2. The father will be allowed to contact the child only under the supervision of the court. 3. The police will investigate the false accusations, character assassination and threats against the father. 4. Sanaa Bibi will be provided with state protection. 5. And the court salutes the courage, sacrifice and truth of this mother." There was a faint whisper in the court. Tears flowed from Sanaa's eyes. But she remained silent. The husband was taken into custody by the police outside the court. He looked at Sanaa for the last time and shouted, "Did you win?" Sanaa spoke softly. "I didn't win. That mother won." Even after years of beatings, brought her voice out of the grave of silence. That woman won. Who doesn't just tolerate, now speaks the truth. A few months had passed. A small board had been put up in a quiet part of the city. "Have you heard that a woman suffers? Here she is telling the story." The board was placed outside the Sanaa Welfare Center, a place where women came, whose bodies were not only scarred, but also marked on their souls. This was Sanaa's dream, Noah her mission. Sanaa was now a mother, fighting not just for her son, but for all daughters and mothers. Every week, she would sit with the women, listen to their stories, give them legal advice, and above all, give them encouragement. One day a young girl came, whose eyes were the same as Sanaa's once were. Scared, terrified, and unable to speak. Sanaa placed a mirror in front of him and said softly, "Look at yourself. Recognize yourself. You are not just a wound. You are living proof that a woman breaks, but does not shatter." The son would now go to school. Every day he would say to his mother, "Mom, when I grow up, I will bring justice to everyone like you." Sanaa would smile and pray from her heart, "Oh God, may my son never become a man who makes a woman cry, but rather become a shadow for a crying woman." One day a media team came. In front of the camera, the reporter said, "Sanaa Bibi, you lost everything to build this center. Did you ever regret it?" Sanaa looked up at the sky. The air was the same coolness as it was that night, when she left the door crying. She spoke softly. "The day I stopped being silent after being beaten, that day I achieved everything. My mother used to say, the real face of a woman is the one who smiles even after enduring injustice, but is not afraid to speak the truth. I am that face, and now I want every woman to recognize her face." The cameras stopped. But Sanaa's story was playing in every heart. It was not just Sanaa's story. It was the voice of thousands of Sanaas. The lesson was, if oppression is endured in silence, then it does not give justice. It only gives courage to the oppressor. But if a woman stands up, then she changes not only her own, but the destiny of the entire era.